Hey everyone, welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by critiquing current players. I am one of your three co-hosts, Derek Kubicek, and today we are looking at Season 48, Episode 10, My Enemies Are Plottin'. And I can't rap, but I'm going to rap it with my boys tonight, Ryan Stacy and Josh Wessler. How are you guys doing after a fairly unenthusiastic episode, but I mean an episode that makes sense with this season?
Well, my insomnia is cured because this episode put me to sleep.
This is a filler episode if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, I think this is my least favorite episode of the season so far. And not because it's just like, it's not anything like production did, which is usually what pisses me off. It's one player, really. This was a real race to the bottom of an episode.
Yeah, there's a few different ways that the end of the season could have gone. We took the road that, honestly, I'm the least surprised by, but simultaneously the most surprised by, and I don't know how.
So I'm not quite in the same camp as Ryan on this. I think this is a very fascinating episode and season to think about because it is turning out to be quite a bit different from anything that we've seen in modern era Survivor, everything post Winners at War, and just watching what happens at the bottom when the top does what it does. And we can't really talk about any of that anymore without getting into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the episode, I mean, you know, go watch it. Watch every episode of Survivor.
Yep.
But you're really not missing a lot if you skip this one. So 3, 2, 1, we're losing Purple Edit Star tonight.
The person who is least likely to win goes home.
Correct. I think we all had Star at the bottom. I think the Lankdown had Star at the bottom.
Unanimous
this week. So I mean,
I got a text from a friend of ours, Sarah Sakura. Shout out to her. She was very sad because she thought Star was great, really fun character, and would have been a great 0 vote finalist in third place.
One of the two things I guess from this episode, I kind of teased the listeners, but the second thing that I'm thinking about, I'll get to the first eventually, is why was Star purple edited? And I think I get it, because she is this frenetic, loud, chaotic, opinionated, and strategic individual who wants to make big moves. Basically everything that this season is not. Like, you drop her into what the storyline is of this season, at least to this point, and she just makes no sense. This is Tom Bombadil in Lord of the Rings. Like, this is a very serious story, and here's this demigod who just likes to hang out with his wife named Goldberry. Like, there's a reason he's not in the movie.
And when the Peter Jackson adaptation of Survivor 48 happens, Star's getting cut.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I get it. I'm sad though because she is great.
She's very
television.
Fun character, very fun character.
So Star, big fan of the podcast. Come on and tell us about all of the shenanigans you got up to out there. You know, after you're done talking with Dalton Ross and everyone at EW and RHAP, join us over here and let us know what it was like and all the things that we missed out on, because I feel like you might be my favorite purple edited person on Survivor of all time.
I have one checkup thing I want to bring up from last week, just because we got one message of concern about my my sleep insomnia last week. I did manage to sleep the next day on and off for about 14 hours. Thank you, melatonin. And so the insomnia has slowly gone away for the most part. So I haven't been able to nap as well as I used to, but I have been getting sleep at night. So thank you for those who reached or messaged about that. And that was why the podcast didn't come out till Friday last week, because I slept all day Thursday. I was just exhausted. So thank you for your patience on that one. Very appreciated.
I'm happy that you're well rested now.
Well, and I'll say we're normally a well-oiled machine, but that podcast came out one day late. Ryan, we're glad you slept.
Yeah, I needed it. So I don't think I've ever been that tired in my entire life. Yeah, because I ended up going 47 hours with no sleep, slept for an hour, and then I was up for another 10, 11 hours after that.
Jeez.
Yeah. So before we get into episode proper here, I want to do just a self-accountability session. I was wrong on Shaheen being the worst player of the episode last week. So congrats not only to Josh and Ryan for telling me I was wrong. I think we had several comments telling me that they thought that I was crazy.
Deservedly so.
And you know what? Good call. That being said, Ryan's eventual discussion of what the ideal move was for today will bear out that I should have been right, but obviously in practice, that's not how it turns out. So,
all right, should we jump into this episode?
yes.
All right, let's do it. So we get back to camp after David gets voted out, and Eva's going to be the first one to really talk to Mary and kind of apologize to her. And she says, I will try to save you. I don't want you to go. And I will tell you if it's you. I'm not going to play my idol on you. So I think Mary appreciates the straightforwardness of that one. So I think that was a decent move for Eva.
There's a fine line here because I kind of got the feeling, if I was in Mary's shoes and Eva was talking to me about this, it would have kind of felt jury management-y to the point where it might have been disingenuous, but you have to completely go off of, your read on the relationship that you have with the person and whether or not this is even okay to do. And it seemed like he was fine.
Yeah. Camilla is going to talk to Star and Mary, and the three of them want to get together, bring in Mitch, and make a move, force a tie, go to Rocks, maybe try and take out Joe, and then go to Rocks.
The revolution will be televised.
Yes.
Viva la revolution!
It's a great plan and absolutely what those four should be doing. And the fact that this does not happen is a travesty because it was the right move for these four. Mitch blows it. Mitch is going to blow it. The majority four of Kyle, Shaheen, Joe, and Eva, they are going to kind of pretend to bring Mitch and Camilla in. We're going to go to the 6 together. But you two are 5 and 6. They don't say that part out loud, but they're 5 and 6.
Well, and even so, hey, come into this alliance of 6 where whatever resume you try to build is going to be stacked up against one of the most successful alliances in Survivor history. Good luck.
Yeah. Good luck.
And I mean, obviously, Camilla wants no part in this nonsense, as she shouldn't.
She
but
shouldn't.
I like that she's playing nice in the moment. This is some savvy gameplay from Camilla. It's very much the Boston Rob fist bump, and then I'm gonna go talk with my real people later.
Yep. So Star's gonna try and pull in Mitch. He's not interested at all. It's like, Mitch, what are you doing? And Camilla's gonna fill in Kyle on what's going on. And Kyle feels like he's betrayed too many people, and he does not want to betray Joe. But he's going to kind of pull a Big Tom approach all the way back from Survivor Africa. Big Tom wanted Lex to go home, but made a promise that he would not vote for him. But he would not step in the way of Lex getting taken out. And that's what Kyle wants to do here. He won't vote for Joe. He will not stop it from happening, which is interesting. And Kyle's interesting. He's really interesting. I feel like he's starting to play with his heart a little too much.
He's really interesting on an interesting season. I low-key loved this thought process. I'm not going to call it a move because it never actually came to fruition, but his thought process for how he sees his game and how he sees his relationships with people on the jury so far, I think is at least it's much more forward thinking than you get from a lot of other castaways who think all they need to do is get to the end because they've just played this amazing game. No, he's actually being really realistic. My big question is, okay, you make this very intentional decision to let Camilla, drive through a blindside like this and step aside willingly and, withhold that information from your alliance. How is that going to be at Final Tribal Council? Mm-hmm. Is that going to be a move that, one, is respected, and two, you're able to explain enough to get people to be like, oh yeah, okay, I can see this. He wasn't just, blindsided along with everyone else. That's the most interesting part to me.
And I want to talk about Kyle's game as well, because we're going to see him later on try and devise or manufacture a situation where Camilla's plan may come to fruition and he can go to her and say, I did everything that I could to try and light the spark of the revolution. Mm-hmm. The most fascinating final 3 for Kyle to end up in is Joe, Kyle, and Camilla. If you get with those 3, do you get enough votes because you played Joe's game better than Joe? Do you get more votes than Camilla because you played Camilla's game better than Camilla? Or do you get credit for straddling both worlds rather than choosing to specialize in either? That would be the most interesting final 3 to put Kyle's game up against both litmus tests, I guess, or put it to the test. Can it win? So Kyle's game remains of utter fascination to me, and perhaps the most interesting player left on the season.
Yeah. So we're going to go to the reward challenge for chicken and waffles, fried chicken and waffles, and they sing us a song about it. Wow.
Heck yeah.
That was amazing. But Kyle's going to end up winning a reward, and he gets to bring 3 people with And he brings Eva, Camilla, and Shaheen. And this was, on paper, I think what Kyle should have done is definitely bring Camilla and Mitch, because optics are they're 5 and 6. We got to keep them happy. And then you can, bring Shaheen is fine after that. But I didn't like the Eva pick. But he's going to tell us in confessional his plan was to piss Mitch, Star, and Mary off enough so that Camilla's plan can happen. So he didn't want to bring those 3 just to make them angry and try to take the shot at Joe. And while that's a really interesting thought process and good for Camilla's game, I'm not so sure that's good for Kyle's game. I'm not so sure that helps him.
I don't think him helping Camilla at this point is bad for his game. I think he missed. I think then you leave Camilla back on the beach and you bring Joe instead. I think he kind of messes up his own strategy just a little bit. I understand, you want Camilla to feel solid with you so she doesn't turn on you. But if you are secret alliance members, don't go on reward. Ryan, I'm not picking you. You're staying back. And let the 4 conspire. Instead, Joe is going to say, well, he's, not enjoying reward of fried chicken and waffles. Kyle left me to babysit. He kind of interprets this as a point of trust rather than a point of treason. So I think he gets 90% of the way there, but he kind of fumbled the biggest part, which would be Camilla, who really wants to do this, wants to spearhead this move. Why didn't you leave her on the beach?
There were better options for Kyle all around.
I liked the thought process of it. I think there is an argument for what Derek is saying about whether or not it should be Camilla versus Joe that you bring with. But I like what he's trying to do just in general here. This is the type of thing where if he needs to help give this entire plan a nudge because not everyone is on board yet. Sure, because I do think that it's in his best interest for someone like Joe to get blindsided. And this isn't, the type of thing that's going to lose jury votes. Not bringing someone on a reward, shouldn't. I'm not going to say won't, shouldn't lose you a jury vote.
We're going to go to the immunity challenge, and we're going to get the rice negotiation again, and nobody is interested. Good. You shouldn't be.
And they kind of just skated over this so fast. Basically, Jeff asked Mitch, and basically only Mitch, if he was interested. And then after Mitch said no, he's like, all right, so no one is interested in doing this, huh? I'm sure he asked everyone, and they just cut through all this, but for how insignificant this was from the TV aspect, do they just need to switch something up with this?
Maybe do it earlier. At Final 8, you're kind of asking a lot. I still like the time he stabbed the bag with a knife and let the rice drain out. That was fun.
He may have been ready to do that this time, but nobody wanted the rice. So okay.
I think what I'd rather see is some sort of endurance challenge and then offer food like Temptations. We'll end somebody step down. I think I'd rather see that. Bring that.
I think that makes the most sense to me too.
The only other thing of note here that I loved was Jeff saying, Shaheen, the last few seasons, no one's taking the rice. And Shaheen says, you throw twists at us, Jeff, we're going to throw them right back at you. Shaheen, big fan of the podcast. This is the kind of big energy we like to bring to Survivor, especially when it makes the edit. That is Danny channeled in a slightly less explosive package, and I am here for it.
Swing it back at Jeff.
Yes. Uncle JP.
But Joe is going to win immunity, as I predicted.
And I noticed something. If you remember from the sweat challenge at the way beginning of the season, Kyle was working too fast. He was too abrupt. He wasn't careful. He was not precision. And he ended up failing. And this time, every time he got close, he failed. I'm wondering if this is going to be Kyle's story. Is he going to go out at 5 or 4 where he's so close, but because of the way that he's playing the game, which is very dangerous, very risky, he's going to come up just short. So I just want to hang these 2 hats on these hooks and see if eventually the coat hangs here as well. Is this where Kyle's game ultimately gets hung?
Or he gets second place.
It could be.
Loses by a vote or 2.
Yeah. It could be. It could be. It's just I'm noticing this with Kyle, and I like how the edit isn't calling it out, but if you're watching, it's just a feeling.
So Mitch has decided he is not going to be part of this plan to dethrone the top 4 because he doesn't trust Star and Mary.
Mitch!
He's going to give his confessional saying, you can't work with people, you can't make a move if you don't trust them.
Mitch!
You absolutely can. You don't have to trust the person. You have to trust their motives. You have to trust their goals. You have to have a read on that and trust that they will do what's best for them. Trust the person for who they are, not for the relationship you have with them. Like, are you going to trust them with your life? No. Are you going to trust that you have similar goals? Yeah, it's a really easy thing to do. Mitch, you have a complete misread on the whole situation, and him not going for this plan is just so bad. I think it loses him the game here.
I just want to know what changed. Like, because there has to be something else. He was perfectly fine with doing this when it was Joe as the target, but when it was either Shaheen or Kyle as the target, then now he's out. So why does he feel like he can't do this to one of them? And now all of a sudden trust with these other two people is an issue, because it seemed like before the immunity challenge, this was a done deal.
I'm guessing it didn't have anything to do with the person. It had to do with going to Rocks, didn't want to do that, and maybe Mitch thinks he can win out in immunity challenges and just not wanting to go to the Rock draw. That's probably my guess. Yeah, I'm not saying he's right. I'm saying that's what his thought process is.
And this is what I teased at the beginning of the episode. Mitch's decision right here, I think, is perhaps the most fascinating study point. Like, if you put Survivor 48 up for case study, the 4 people on the top are using trust with each other as their currency, and the 4 people at the bottom are not. They're playing a more quote-unquote modern game of Survivor where you trust your self-interest and you're trusting other people's self-interests as long as they're aligned with yours. But because they're put up against this group of 4 that really do seem to trust each other implicitly, even if they understand it's not always best for their game, Mitch is floundering. He's like, I've been kind of invited into this, and like, to me, it's like this need to belong. And it has the 4 people on the bottom divided, and they will be conquered. I am convinced. I think that Mitch is kind of the nail in that coffin.
Yeah.
So if you're watching the season for anything else, it's if you can get that trust where it's like, I don't really care if I win. I just want to make it to this point with you guys and we fight it out. It's always been the most dangerous thing in the game. It's one of the most impossible to accomplish. But here we are, at least so far. I'm fascinated.
If you can get a tight 4, that you're good, because you get to fire making and then you don't vote each other out. You don't have to betray each other. That's the problem with fire making. It behooves the contestants to make a tight 4 and not change. So that's the problem with 4, Jeff.
One of the many.
And it also changes the like pivotal point in the post merge. You know, we've said for a while, instead of it being like, okay, you know, final 7, the vote at final 7 is so important. It's like final 8 might be the most important, or maybe final 9, just because if you can get that 4 to make it through to a point where it's, you know, now rocks are in question at 8 because people aren't willing to, you know, give up on their game and they're willing to go to rocks. And yeah, I don't really like that structure.
Yep.
When it comes to this, we're still fairly far out. Like, yes, the end of the game is really soon as far as total number of days wise. 8 people is still a lot of people. There should be a lot more options out there, and it doesn't really feel like there is.
You want the more important vote, the most important vote of the season to be towards the end, not earlier.
Ideally, it should be final 4.
Yeah, or, you know, but that's probably not likely. I don't know how you can make that happen, but like final 5, final 6, final 7, that's where you want it to be, right coming up to the end, not at final 8 or 9. So Mitch, he's not gonna do it, and he tells Star to play her shot in the dark, which feels very much like Amanda telling Parvati to play her idol.
Probably want to play your idol.
But it turns out, yeah, she should have played her shot in the dark. So it wasn't that case this time. So basically, Mitch is out. So Camilla's like, well, this can't happen. This won't work. I guess I'm with the 6. So that leaves Mary and Star on the outs. And they're like, well, guess we got to go for each other. Sorry. No. Good luck. But not really.
And you know what? I think I need to talk directly to Camilla. Camilla, big fan of the podcast. And maybe she did this. I think she needs to lean on Kyle. Make a decision and cut from Kyle right here, or convince him to come to your side, because now you've given him the reins. Like, I understand a move can still be made with 7, with Kyle and Camilla and Mary and Mitch, but that's now Kyle's call and not yours. No one will ever see your game as separate, and I don't think you have the ammunition to take out Kyle anymore.
I think she should have leaned harder on Mitch. Really pushed him to do this.
If you can convince Kyle to come with you, you can convince Mitch to go along with this plan.
I disagree.
I don't. I think that if Mitch sees one crack in that top 4, he's willing to make the move. Mitch isn't a nothing. Like, he understands strategically that he's in trouble.
Does he? I don't know.
Well, in terms of like needing to win the game, I think he does understand that. Whether it's the edit or Camilla, we needed to see an ultimatum issued, at least in confessional. Camilla needs to say, if Kyle doesn't come with me here, I understand that I cannot be number ones with him anymore. That's my thought.
I think the issue with trying to get Kyle to flip here is I don't think there's any incentive for him to do it, because I think he's completely right with what he was saying earlier, where, if you can get this to be done, then I'm perfectly fine with it, because I don't think that will hurt my game, if not help my game. But me flipping on Joe right now, I don't think is good for my game, and betraying him just because I could lose another jury vote. Whereas now, like you're saying, all he has to do is, flip and get at least more respect. Maybe he'll lose Joe's vote, but just have a lot more respect this time and have it be his move rather than Camilla's.
And Camilla has no leverage at this point, especially with Mitch being gone. Like, she can't make this threat. All that does is just put her in a worse position. She can't rise, because the only thing she could do is ask, try and convince them to flip, but she can't make an ultimatum. And if neither Mitch or Kyle will flip, she has to just go with the 6.
And that's why I say in confessional, I want to see that ultimatum.
Sure.
Like, he can't be my number one. But I wanted to see her lean harder on Kyle to flip in this moment. And maybe she did, and we didn't see it. But I would have liked to see that.
So what we get is some scrambling between Mary and lesser extent Star. People throwing Mary and Star under the bus respectively, trying to get each other out. We get Star rapping instead of strategizing, which was a great rap, though. But we're going to go to Tribal Council, and Star has a great line when she's like, no disrespect to Mitch, but he did not stutter when he told me to play my shot in the dark. It was like, oh, damn!
Bold move. I'm assuming if she did that, she's got a good enough rapport with Mitch to where we can joke about this. I'm not going to make that joke because I don't know Mitch personally. So bold for that to go on television.
Damn. Spitting some fire. It was good. It was really good. But it is end up going to be 5 votes for Star, 3 votes for Mary. Star does not play her shot in the dark. And Camilla and Mitch were the 2 other votes on Mary. So I'm assuming it was a split. Or they lied to Camilla and Mitch and said it was Mary, and then they voted for Star. I guess we don't know for sure.
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say.
Either way, the majority alliance was protected in the event of a shot in the dark.
So yeah, Star's going to go home here. And it was 100% the wrong move. This should have probably been a rock draw. If we're going to go to rocks, should Kyle... Basically, the question for me is, let's say we're going to rocks. 4-4. Should Kyle flip? Let's say it's 4 votes for Shaheen, 4 votes for Star, and what should Kyle do in the revote? Should he flip on Shaheen or stay strong and go to rocks?
Not that this should matter, but I almost think you need to have a read on, like, do you get David's jury vote by proving him right that Kyle was the sus man out? Or do you prove him wrong and say, David, we voted you out because you suspected me, but I stayed true for as long as I could. One thing, and I understand that this is like inside baseball a little bit, but I read in David's exit interview that him and Chrissy are actually really, really close. And if they're rapport and they're talking back and forth about what's going on in the game, David might be able to say, oh, I was wrong about Kyle, and bring Chrissy in to vote for him as well. And David has the personality where he might actually end up being the mayor of Ponderosa rather than Cedric or Chrissy.
That's not how that works.
I understand, like, the first person there is mayor. I get it.
They set the tone.
But I feel like David is
Cedric doesn't have the personality, I think, to be mayor.
He's mayor. He set the tone. The first person at Ponderosa is the mayor.
In name only.
They set the tone. No, this is how this works. You have to be the first person at Ponderosa. Yes, you can influence it more as a juror and a member of Ponderosa. But the first juror at Ponderosa is the mayor of Ponderosa.
Cedric,
that's how it works.
Cedric is the lovable golden retriever who gets voted mayor honorarily in that northern Minnesota town every year.
He's probably a very ineffective mayor in this case, but he is the mayor.
So my point being is, should Kyle flip? What do you think the jury will respect? In my opinion, I think you prove David wrong, and then you have his respect at Final Tribal Council. We voted you up because you suspected I would flip. I did not. I think that he does not flip, and I think he has to survive a rock draw to prove that he's willing to do this.
I think I would just trust Kyle if we got to that situation, but just based off the read, because, I think he wins no matter what, But I think if he goes with the card like Camilla was my number one ally this whole time and can get to the end with her and say, that was who I was loyal to, that she was my number one, it proves David right. And it shows Kyle the real game it shows everyone the real game Kyle was playing. So just based on what we've seen, I'm leaning towards maybe flipping and just going with Camilla's plan. But I would, if we got to that point, and Kyle went to Rocks and said, I would totally trust him in that situation.
Yeah, and I would trust Kyle as well to have a better and more information. Side note, Jeff said, "Oh, everyone has to remember the audience has more information than the contestants." I strongly contest.
We have advantage information.
We have a narrative. The contestants have pretty much all the information you can possibly have, and they have to try and make sense of it. They have all the data, and they have to turn it into information.
They don't have all the data. Advantages. We have all the advantage information.
Yes.
They have most of the social information, which we do not get all of. We are fed an edit.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily agree with Jeff.
And I just don't agree with Jeff.
Shocker. I think that Kyle flipping would be the wrong move for him here because, again, I think I brought this up on like each of the last two podcasts, is essentially like what happens next. What happens next is if you take out Shaheen here, Eva and Joe are going to come for you. I think that they will come for you. And I think Kyle would be the next person out because there are advantages in play. And you could be in a situation where, probably one of Eva or Joe are going to win immunity. And if not, they have two advantages that can make both of them immune. So they could rally enough votes together to go on Kyle. And the people at the bottom are going to be more than welcoming to do that because that's just one step closer to the end for them. So I think Kyle would be going home next if he did that.
That's a fair point. That is a very fair point. So, but either way, the wrong move happened. It should not have been a choice between Star and Mary. That's ridiculous. It should have been a showdown. Maybe go to Rocks. Maybe Kyle flips. Either way, that should have been the critical point, not where we ended up. This is ridiculous.
And it's all Mitch's fault.
It's all Mitch's fault. 100% Mitch's fault.
I put this squarely on Mitch.
So yeah, wrong person went home, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What did social media say? I'm either going to be very proud or very disappointed.
So the majority of social media says no. The wrong person went home tonight, but it is not nearly as lopsided as what it should be. We're sitting at all things combined, we're sitting at about like 65% of the vote.
Boo. Rookie numbers. Okay, well, whatever.
That's all you can say. It's just whatever.
Social media remains the antagonist of my life. Survivor and otherwise.
Should we get into best and worst player of the episode?
Yeah.
Derek, start us off. Who is the best player of the episode?
So I'm going to give this to Joe again because he won immunity. The revolution should have come for his alliance, and they didn't. And I think this is in part because of the work that Joe has done on Kyle. I think Kyle deserves an honorable mention for sticking with the strong, honest alliance. But ultimately, like when Camilla said we want to go for Joe, Kyle said, I'm not going to stand in the way, but I'm also not really going to help you. That's a testament to the work that Joe has done socially to keep everybody together. Eva might be the heart, but Joe is also the heart. So between winning immunity, the alliance staying strong, a person on the bottom inexplicably going home with like no real pushback, Mitch not wanting to flip, I'm going to give it to Joe, but honestly, props to everybody on the top here.
I originally had written down Mary, and I'm scribbling that out. I was giving it to her just because of the ability for her to flip the vote from her to Star. The reason why I'm scribbling it out is because that was bad for her in the end. She did need Star at the end for a chance to win. Not saying that she would have won, but that's one more person that she could beat in a sea of now people who are all big players. Like very big players. Like there is a huge gap right now between the top, 5 or 6 people and, well, now the other 2. So I can't give it to her, even though that was a good, like, honorable mention, I would say, but like that is the cap of what you could give her right now. I'm going to go with Kyle here, mostly not because of the actions that he took, but because of all the thought process that we got from him. And while that's not actual moves, I was also thinking Joe, but I'm not going to do it just because of immunity. Also, he didn't have a great moment on the beach when it seemed like he was trying to jury manage with, I think, Mary. She told us so in confessional. I really like his thought process of where he sees his game and where it needs to go, and how meticulous he's being with, or how intentional he's being with where that needs to go with his story for the end. So Kyle.
I went with Joe. I agree with everything Derek said. Worst player, Josh, who do you got?
It's Mitch. Mitch can no longer win the game.
Agreed 100%. He needed to make this move. He didn't. He can no longer win the game.
Ryan, promise not to cut this. It's Mitch, and it's because he is Aaron Burr from the Hamilton play. Geniuses, lower your voices, you keep out of trouble, and you double your choices. I'm with you, but the situation is fraught. You've got to be carefully taught. If you talk, you're gonna get shot. But stars coming to him like Alexander Hamilton. Burr, check what we got, Mr. Lafayette. Hard rock like Lancelot. I think your pants look hot. Lorenzo like you a lot. Let's hatch a plot blacker than the kettle calling the pot. What are the odds of gods that put us all in one spot? Copping a squad on conventional wisdom, like it or not. A bunch of revolutionary manumission abolitionists. Give me a position. Show me where the ammunition is. Mitch, you have failed. Viva la Revolution is dead, and it is your fault.
Wow. Wow. All right. Well done, Derek.
Believe it or not, that was in one take.
That was in one take. I'm impressed. I am officially impressed. Well done.
Thank you.
I will keep all that in. That was excellent. And I agree completely.
And I agree completely.
If
Snap for Derek.
If Star gets to rap, I guess so do I.
Sure. All right, let's get into who is going next. And I really don't see any way this top four falls apart anymore. Mary's going next.
Now I've got Mary.
I can't do it. I can't say that it's gonna be Mary. I'm gonna go Mitch. I'm gonna go Mitch here. But should it be someone like Shaheen? Because I don't think it can be Joe or Eva right now, just because we're close to like the deadline for those advantages where it's just so dangerous. But I think that Mitch is gonna be a slightly easier non-GOAT, I guess, to take out right now. I think people can convince themselves that he's a threat enough, whether it's socially or whatever, of getting votes at the end where it's like, yeah, we should probably take out Mitch. Let's do that. And then he's just gone.
So the more interesting question I want to talk about, we have a deadline next week on the advantage.
Safety without power is last time Eva can play it is next week.
This is what I would like to see happen. I think Eva should either give that to Mitch or Mary to play for themselves. One, because it doesn't matter. If the strong person alliance comes in, they can take out who they want. And if one of those people on the bottom leaves, that's one fewer vote for people on the bottom that could be used to topple somebody on the top. So whoever you feel is more likely to use it for themselves in self-preservation, I would make an argument probably Mary.
Sure.
Have Mary leave along with her vote, and then Mitch. I mean, even if it's Mitch, Kyle, and Camilla at that point, you don't have enough to overtake Eva, Joe, and Shaheen. So that is how I would love to see safety without power played next week, but we shall see.
That might be too cute, but it is an interesting idea.
Yeah, you know what?
A little cute.
We are on a Survivor podcast. I'm here for some cuteness. I want to get the people thinking.
We're not cute enough? Come on.
Maybe you are, Josh.
Oh, thanks.
All right, let's get into who cannot win this game. Our rank downs, stank downs, lank downs, and jank downs. Josh, lank down it up. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, we actually had a little bit of the listeners align now with where we are at. So they ended up putting Joe at the top and then Mary and Star at the bottom in the can't win. So and they're next up after Mary and Star is Camilla. So we'll see if they think that Camilla can't win this game. It's interesting. Make sure that you would submit your rank downs if you want your rankings to be included in our average for next week. But the rest of the grouping is pretty similar to what we have with Joe, Kyle, and Eva all being in the top three.
Okay. Derek, take us through your dank down.
Yeah, I'll start at the top. Honestly, I don't even think anything changed. I think it's Joe, Eva, Kyle, Shaheen, Mitch, Camilla, Mary. I think Star got lopped right off the bottom, and the snake is still slithering. Nothing changed.
for me, I did have a little bit of a change, and it's at the top because something changed like chemically in my brain, I think, during this episode where I saw Kyle in a different light. So what I did is I actually, because before I had it as Joe, Eva, then Kyle. Now I have it as Kyle, then Joe, then Eva. I have Kyle number one in this game. I think that he has the best shot to be able to be at the end with everyone else because he has a bigger game than just, hey, we were a type four. He has layers to it, whereas I don't think Joe and Eva do. Now, they might have better social games that can get them the votes to beat Kyle in the end, but just as far as layers to their game go, that might get more respect votes. I think that that could be Kyle. So mine from the top is Kyle, Joe, Eva, Camilla, Shaheen, Mitch, Mary.
Okay. I had a four spots, so two swaps basically. So started off at the top. Kyle and Joe stay in the same spots. Then I swapped Eva and Shaheen. Eva's 3, Shaheen's 4. And then I swapped Camilla and Mitch. Camilla above Mitch. So my bottom 2, Mitch and Mary. Mitch beats Mary.
So we are all in agreement with Mary being at the bottom, but Derek does not agree with me and Ryan.
But because of edit, I want to tell everyone I've got a new fork. I don't think there's any way Mitch wins this game.
Put a fork in Mitch.
So now we have forks in Mitch and Mary, which doesn't necessarily make sense because Camilla, I have second from the bottom. To me, that's still game optics at this point. Mitch is on severe probation. And to your point, Josh, Joe and Eva are on probation for me this week because I feel like if you're telling everybody, hey, you're going home, that's just the way it is, I'll do what I can, but I'm not really going to do much, that can come across as very snooty, very like, I'm talking down to you, there's nothing you can do, fish in a barrel kind of thing. I don't necessarily think that's how they're taking it, but it can be taken that way. So I am concerned for them.
It's interesting because both Eva and Joe did it to Mary, and Mary had completely different reactions to Eva versus Joe. So if those two are sitting at the end together, who knows who the third person is? But maybe that's an indication that Eva would beat Joe.
Maybe.
Who knows?
All right. Last thing we got to check in on is the survivor pool, and things are looking dire.
Things are looking dire for a lot of people.
Yep.
Let me just tell you. No one had Star this
right
week.
Move.
Both Ryan and Derek had already picked Star. So you guys don't lose anyone in that process. And with all the listeners, 80% of listeners picked Camilla this week. So, but like I said, no one picked Star. Now, there are a couple of listeners who are out of people. I'm not going to say them because I'm going to wait until next week because they did technically make it through. They did not get eliminated. The person did not get voted out this week. But yeah, I'm going to have, like, spoiler alert, there's going to be some names next week. I hope you're ready for the graveyard to fill up.
Oh boy. We got the graves dug. Time to throw the corpses in.
We contracted James. He dug all the graves.
Yep.
As for an update with you guys.
Yeah. I might be going in one of these graves here, folks.
Ryan has one person left, and that is Mary.
Mary's my pick. That's it. That's all I can do.
Yep. That's all I can do. Derek has 2 people left, Joe and Shaheen.
Yep, I'm going to go with Joe. I think he's protected by Eva, so really all I can do is hope that Shaheen doesn't go home next week. Ideally, Mary goes home and it's a clean win, but there is a chance that we stalemate here if Joe and Mary are both safe and Shaheen goes home.
Boy, yeah, my who is going next is Mary. My survivor pool is Mary. You'll love to see it.
You'll love to see it.
I certainly do.
Not great. Josh, we had a bunch of comments and questions from the listeners this last week. Let's get into some of those.
Yeah, awesome. So once again, thank you for everyone who is submitting questions, whether related to the episode, Survivor in general, or just, you want to get to know the consultant. So thank you very much. Let's start with Jacob on Spotify. He asks, random question for the 3 of us, but which Survivor challenge would you win against the other 2? So maybe not necessarily what are you going to be best at, but just a 3-way heads up challenge.
I think the one where you use your feet to stack the blocks and then you put the flag in the middle, I think I would win at that one. I have, even after my accident, I have like freakishly good toe dexterity.
My wife told me to say Samotion, But I
Mm.
feel like Josh might have me on that one. I don't know.
That's funny because I was gonna say Samotion.
So I feel like I'm gonna give Josh the edge on some motion. I'm gonna go old school Survivor, and I'm gonna say that if you've got like a stand on a post endurance challenge, I will Lauren O'Connell the crap out of that, and I will pass out before I step down. And one more for fun between the three of us, the old sandbag Andrew Savage Rupert
Oh
challenge, where you
God,
just
no.
stack the weight on. Ryan, you got a bum foot, and Josh, my legs are much bigger than yours. So I don't skip leg day. I think I can get you guys on that one.
I was gonna say my legs are fairly strong, I will say, but yeah, I'd probably give out in anything endurance related. So that is very fair. Also, anything like dexterity, like specifically hand dexterity. So like I was thinking for a little bit, like the stacking of the cards. No, I have super shaky hands. Like I
Me
like
too.
it
Oh,
crazy
so
shaky, so I would fail so fast on one of those. But something like, Samotion, where it's more just like keeping track of things, timing it out, and just, I feel like I'd be able to do that pretty well.
I'll
So
concede some motion to Josh.
yeah. I also thought of I knew for sure ones that I wouldn't do would be like the in the water with the grate.
Oh, I would love that so much. I think I could win that one. What was the one you were talking about with Rupert?
The one where it's sandbags, where you just carry the weight and they keep putting sandbags on you. And
Oh,
you
You're
hold as
standing like
much
in one
weight as
spot with the
possible.
bar
My
on
foot's
your
not the
back.
issue there. It's my back. I have two busted vertebrae, I remember.
Well, so it'd be foot and back and chest for you on that one.
Ryan would
Either way,
collapse.
Ryan, you're folding.
Sandbags, I don't want to do that one.
Yeah, Ryan probably wins most things that involve most swimming, I think.
Swimming, I win because I swim like a fish. Now, the interesting one for me is where it's kind of like the old school where you just like stand on the hand on a hard idle. Do you think you're more stubborn than me, or am I more stubborn than you? Who's the more stubborn one?
Yeah,
No,
because there's a difference between like endurance where you're like on the pole from a week or two ago, and there's endurance, but also a little stamina
Yep.
built into it where you actually do have to last long enough. Like your body has to actually last long enough versus stubbornness.
I'm taking my ankles and back over yours, Ryan. I'm not saying you're more stubborn. I'm saying that your back might decide that it's going to lock up and you're going to fall off before me.
That's never happened before, but okay.
But you've never put
True,
your hand on an
true,
idol for 12 hours.
True. Who's the best at puzzles?
Not me.
Ooh,
Not
ooh.
me.
You know what? I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like that one's a toss up.
Depends on the puzzle. I'm good at some puzzles, very bad at other puzzles.
Yeah. Like
If it's more so like the hanging fish or something like that, I'd be okay with, like, pretty good with some of those. A more complex slide puzzle, I'm screwed. I can't do that stuff.
I'm going to give myself the edge on the slide puzzles. I know how to solve those. Anything else? Any major types of challenges we're missing?
if
I
there
think
are.
I've always thought that I'd do well at the old school, like Final Four, Final Five, like obstacle course one, where you have to like go out, do a specific path, come back, and then have like the puzzle at the end, and each little path was different. I always thought that I'd be good at that.
I think I would beat you guys at the dish stacking one in Survivor China.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And-
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the coin stacking one,
Ooh, the Malcolm Memorial with the balls.
Ryan loses that.
Worst
for sure.
challenge performance of all time would be on me on that one. Balance, I lose. I don't know which of you two's got better balance, but balance related, I lose.
I've got pretty good balance. I will say that.
I don't know.
Now,
I
if
could beat
it's
Josh.
endurance balance, probably not.
All right, interesting.
Hmm.
Great question.
Yeah. So thank you, Jacob. All right, next, Michael on Spotify. I'm just going to read the entire thing. They said, when I rewatched this week's episode, I wondered, what is the possibility that both scrolls that were presented to Eva would actually give her safety without power, and it was a production trick to bank on players' greed and feeling of being lucky to proceed to gamble the advantage that he or she already had for something bigger, like a full-on immunity idol? What do you guys think?
There's gaming laws in place to prevent stuff like that. They can't do that.
And I'll go, I guess not a step further, but ever since the Danny incident in season 41, the players need to trust that what Jeff tells them is true. That needs to be kept pure. And Jeff himself on his On Fire podcast has said, like, when I say something now, the players know that they can trust me. And I think that these instructions are an extension of Jeff.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. And then finally, Bo on Spotify asked, if you could pick 3 players from this season, eliminated or still in the game, to have dinner with, who would they be? I think that I would go with I really think that I would like have a good time hanging out with Kyle and Camilla. So I'm gonna go Kyle and Camilla, and then I'm gonna toss Thomas in there because I really like Thomas. Just seems like a vibe.
I'm gonna go Kyle, David, and Shaheen.
I'm gonna go Shaheen, Justin, and Kyle.
Okay.
And I want to do it at Justin's Pizza Place.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, guys, that is episode 10. Hopefully next episode's a little more better.
It's gotta be right.
Oh no, it can always get worse.
Something has to happen.
Hopefully something happens.
Well, something will happen. It's just
social media.
Yeah, you can follow us at Castaway Pod on a bunch of various social medias, videos on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, which is Castaway Consultants. And then we have a website, which is thecastawayconsultants.com, where we post all of our episodes and Ryan's blogs.
And the shout out on Spotify, we really want link downs. That is the big call to action. If you're still alive in the survivor pool, and I'm not sure how many we have left, submit your final pick or whatever you have left. Submit those. But otherwise, you can always come at us with these fun questions at the end of the episode.
Yeah, you're really close to being able to beat Ryan and Derek. So finish it out.
All right. Anything else, guys?
Nope.
All right. Go Timberwolves. This has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.